problems too with bandwidth on Optimum's end. So when we talked about things, we got a sense of, where you were going with the project, Louise. We also had some reservations, and after you got off the call, I had some of the other members had concerns. So I felt at that point, rather than go right to a public meeting for this, maybe we should just discuss this one more time. What we're supposed to do, or what we're mandated to do, is in the historic districts, as you know, I'm sure, reading the guidelines, is try not to change things and preserve things. So preservation is really what we're all about. But we also know rehabilitation and new uses is something that we need to consider also. Obviously, we're looking at new materials all the time, and materials that we didn't accept before, we're accepting now because they've changed so much and they've become so much more natural as a building product material. So there are a lot of changes, and as far as this discussion goes, I had some concerns, and I would probably direct it to the architect, Mark. Some of the concerns I had were did you read the guidelines, or were you familiar with the guidelines?
Yeah.
Oh, you were? Okay. And so what you're presenting, what Louise and yourself are presenting, you feel is compatible with the community, with the streetscape?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Do we have the rendering that we could look at?
Yes, I'll share it on the screen.
Thanks. I think what we're talking about here is we have an entryway that is got a gabled roof over it, and now we want to change that from having a covered roof to having a deck above. So now it becomes, I feel it becomes a new usage for this project, and I think that was. I think we needed to discuss that aspect of the project. I think personally, I think it looks very nice architecturally, but also have reservations about the use. And obviously this will have to go to zoning, I would think. And Mark, when you designed this, any of the details, can you tell us any of the details about the structure itself and the weight bearing, the load bearing aspect of it?
It's all existing. The girder up there is all existing. We're just taking off the roof that was there and re-putting in new floor joists and a flat roof with slight pitch, and then putting the railing around the outside of it.
What are the materials?
The main structure is staying as it is.
Are the materials wood, or are they synthetic?
Wood.
All wood.
All wood.
Okay.
Louise, when we discussed it early on.
Sure. I did something to my screen, so I'm a little messed up, but I can hear you. I can see you.
I can see you.
Okay, good.
We discussed the aspect of the preservation is try to do as little as possible to change.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I had introduced an idea to possibly eliminate the glass door and have it a concealed door that would soften, I think, the facade more. It would, I think it would probably appear to be less change. And you had suggested possibly shuttered doors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe painting them white.
Right, we could. And I sent a photo, and I'm so sorry, my screen is so weird, but I'm gonna just go with it. I thought about that after we discussed it, and I went up in the room, I stood out in the front, and I think to hide the door with just wood would look a little funny and be a little tomb-like. especially from the interior, because as we know, we do want to do minimum, but we also have to live in the home. And I think to have a door, you had mentioned first to just have a wooden door that just opened, almost like a, a secret panel door. I think that if we did a door, it certainly, we could actually put shutters, as it is historic, that would open when we used it and close them. The only thing I would say is it would create sort of a funny interior space. It would depend on the design. I do think that I did send a picture of the perspective of the home, showing, if you have in front of you, there are a gang of 3 windows. I'm looking upstairs now. Gang of 3 windows to either side of the porch. I don't think it would be in keeping with putting a door in the front there, because then it would actually end up equalizing it now. I think it looks funny right now with only 2 windows and the shutters the way they are. And I did find a picture, one of the historic homes that I sent in the Bellport Village and Brookhaven Hamlet historic book.
All right, can everybody see that?
Here, let me just do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
There is, interestingly, there was Captain Olson House. It was raised in 1958. So unfortunately you can't see it, but it's a mid-century, it was built in mid-19th century. It was the residence of Captain Olson. And it was on Bellport Lane and South Country Road, which was torn down for a shopping center. I believe that might be where the Chinese food shopping center is.
Yes.
And I don't know if you can see this, but I did send it.
Yeah,
Can you see it? So actually that's Elena's house, sorry. It's this one on the bottom.
right.
I don't know if you can see, but there is an entryway above the door, the portico there, and there's a door there. And so there's a little bit of a historic precedent there, but also I think that when you're looking at the home from the street, if you have the railings in front of it, the door will actually appear more like a window, because the railing will create the visual break instead of the door. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you're, very rarely are we going to be on the second, on a second floor across the street looking, and the architectural rendering, of course, is straight on at a high level. So if you were to,
Would somebody educate me as to how to see the picture you're talking about?
All right, I'm gonna stop the sharing and then you'll be able to see.
Okay.
All right, now if you could hold it up, Louise, so people.
yeah, you know what? Now I've lost you completely. So bear with me. I have to figure out what I hit to do this.
You're still there.
Can you see me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, for some reason I cannot see you. Let me just figure this out. All right. Well, either way, I'll just.
It's okay. There's a gallery view.
Yeah, and by the way, it's in the PDF that was sent called Historic Homes Bellport 2, that PDF that was sent. So if anyone needs to reference the materials that Mary Lou sent out,
Okay.
you can just call it up there.
Now, can you bear with me? Can you tell me what I have to hit to see you again? I'm sorry.
Gallery.
Okay.
Gallery view.
It's up in the left-hand corner.
Okay, let me just see if it's on my Zoom here. It's not, I don't know if I'm out of view or.
The upper right hand corner, it'll say gallery view.
All right, it's not showing me anything, but
You know what? Yeah, you know what, Louise, because I just had the same thing. You just have to, how you can rearrange your windows?
Yeah.
Do that, because I think it's probably open and just
okay.
being hidden.
Got it. Okay, let me see. All right, hold on. Hey, okay, here we go. Okay, got it. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to hold this up real quick and see if you can see it. Can you? Roger, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yep.
I've seen those. I didn't know which one. I thought you had something new and different.
No, same thing. So on that one, you can see, and from the street view, it's a door, but it actually, by exactly where the railing hits it, it really obscures the fact that it's a door. So I think it would be, I think when you would see it from the street, and Mark, you might want to chime in on this too. You know, the railing will be there and it won't be as
You won't see the
pronounced.
door as much, right?
Right. I feel
Yeah.
like it would be, you know, you'd say, oh, that's a door. And my
Mhm.
neighbors have it and it looks like a window with the perspective of the railing there.
Louise,
Yes?
I agree with what you're saying. If you go back to the picture of the house with the two upper windows missing a shutter on either side,
Yes.
you're saying add the two shutters and then put the door in the middle. Will the door fit in the middle with the two shutters on there?
No, what we were talking about was creating the door and then having door-sized shutters
No,
closed.
I know that, but what if we just go back to having sort of a French door in the center, but having the missing shutters not
Added.
on either side?
Mark, would there be room for that?
Might have to make the door a little
think-
smaller.
Yeah, make
Yeah.
it a little bit smaller.
Narrower,
You'd
yeah.
have the balance of the
We
two
could.
shutters.
We could make the door narrower.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
think
see any.
that would be a better look.
Louise, correct me if I'm wrong.
Can we step back for a minute?
Sure.
I found myself receiving instructions from the chairman of the commission the other day in no uncertain terms to look at all of the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historical properties.
Okay.
And I won't bore you with every single section that he asked me to look at. But the bottom line is that unless this portico was in fact inflicted on this house without a permit and is therefore not historic, to rip it off or even to level it out, unless we can demonstrate that it is historically appropriate to do it, violates those guidelines. Now,
Sorry.
stuck with these guidelines. They are our guide of this institution. So I think we have to talk about that. And I don't know how to answer it because, you know, I went by your house yesterday. You probably saw me staring in your window.
No.
I can't figure out where those black shingled eaves come from over what from the naked eye is not even a bay window.
Right. I don't know. You know, again, I bought the house this way and I don't know if the previous owners did it. I did get in touch with them and he's a little cryptic. And you know, Michael, you may know more of what they did. I don't know. But they did send me a picture of the old entrance. It was I think you saw that. It was the stairs and it was brick combined with irregular stone and pillars, the 6 pillars holding up the roof. Apparently they took that all out. He told me he didn't do anything, but he did. It was all ripped out. The brick is gone, the irregular stone. Now there's bluestone there. And it appears to me they are larger columns. I tried to send the photographs to show that they actually altered the columns to be larger. So they already did something to the front. And I can tell you that these guys, after being in here, and Mary Lou, you probably know this, they were not rule followers. They were of the ilk, we will ask for forgiveness rather than permission. I, on the other hand, follow the rules and have gone through what I'm supposed to do. So it's hard for me to know. And he did not send me, he's afraid that I'm gonna take legal action because he did things without getting approvals and he thinks it's something that I can do and actually caveat emptor, I bought it. So, you know, whatever he did, but he's not forthcoming. And Michael, you know them, so you probably know what I'm talking about.
Gary,
Go ahead, Michael.
the renovation of the entryway, I know they didn't ask permission to do it. They just did it. And the same applies to, for example, their gates.
Yeah.
They
Are
never
those historic?
they never requested. They just did it. And apparently, none of us noticed it. I don't think I was on the commission at the time, so I have a slight excuse. I did a lot of work
I
on
just bought it. I just bought it. I didn't do it.
the inside, and I did the demolition as well as the renovation on the inside. But I don't know, I went off maybe skiing or something and came back, and the entryway was changed.
I did find a photo of the house from 2013 when Mrs. Scafidi owned it.
Mhm.
So hold on one second and I'll.
Okay, yeah.
This is the Google Earth from 2013 when Mrs. Scafidi owned the house.
Okay.
So
Oh, okay.
this is what the front entry was.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and look at the gate. It's totally different. Yeah. Okay.
But the footprint is basically the same.
It looks like the same. Yes. I can't tell on the side. It looks to be addressing your question, Roger, just trying to extrapolate with the trees in the way. It looks to me like that the arched window looks like it was there. And it looks like it had the roof, that funny little rooftop on it too.
These are there.
It's hard to see.
Hard to see.
The back portion of it is hipped now. It doesn't look hipped there.
Yeah, maybe it's flat. Do you think it's
Better?
flat?
Is that better?
Yeah. I don't see any, you know what? I don't see any rooftop on it.
It's
Looks like a very shallow pitch.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might not even have the same depth.
I don't think it does. It looks almost like there's a, I can't tell.
It's too bad we don't have photos prior to this. There was a fire in the house.
Yes, in the 50s, right?
I just learned that tonight there was a fire and it was pretty devastating.
Yes.
It was in the back of the house, though, more in the back.
Right. I can see that in the basement. I have charred wood that they've restored in the basement.
Yeah.
So we don't know really what the Katsias family did.
I don't.
What do you
when they owned it.
What do you mean what they did?
For anything.
They did some updating in the house, his office and so forth. I was a young man at that time, and we were very good friends with them. And they did some renovation in the house, more in the back, but not in the front so much.
He was a very impressive man.
Yep.
Why I asked for pictures, historical pictures of the home was in hopes that maybe we could find what it looked like originally, because
Right.
obviously it's gone through a number of changes.
It has. It has.
And now we want to make one more change.
Right. Yeah. Well, I would like to say I think it's a change for the better. I think we've sort of, I do believe it's a 1920s home. I don't think it's 1910 like I originally said. Mary Lou, you may know that. But Roger, during your conversation, I was losing your audio. So I know you had said something about making changes. So I missed the crux of what you were saying in terms of making changes.
No, that the secretary has for dealing with historic houses is that if you remove porches, by the way, are a very important part of the standards.
Right.
They are dealt with page after page after page. The crux of the standards, I think, is best expressed by saying, if you've got something that's not historic and you want to take it off, and you can prove that what you're putting there is more in keeping with the history of the house, that's okay.
Yeah.
Basically, the standards use the same format that we use for our guidelines. Some things are recommended and some things are not recommended.
Right.
And what's not recommended is replacing something that you don't know whether it's new or old with something that can't definitely be proved to be actually something that was on the house before.
Right. Right.
Anyway, I'm comforted to some degree by the fact that that older picture seems to show that a lot of work was done on this portico.
Yeah, I agree, Roger.
It was, and you know, and I really have sat back and thought about this quite a bit, and I went back and I looked at the Bellport Code and the criteria for approval, and I looked through it's section 22.5C and subsection C, and I looked through it and I thought, well, okay, the general design, character, and appropriateness of the designated landmark or designated historic district of the proposed alteration or new construction, if we have to consider the following factors: the scale of the proposed alteration in relation to the property itself, surrounding properties, neighborhood, or designed historic districts. Well, I would say that it's a small portion. We're making a very small change to the front, albeit, you know, different and changing the look, but it is in keeping with the homes in the neighborhood. Our neighbor next door has a very large porch. We have a porch 2 houses down, and there's another porch. And then of course on Shore Road, everyone has a porch. And my house across the street, which is circa 1975 with the yellow door, they have a porch. So I think that what we've done, we've sort of dealt with the number 2, sub C, C2, text, and then 3 is textures, materials, and color and their relation.
Can I interject for a second? I'm sorry. Aren't most of those porches on the side of the house, not the front?
Right.
Yeah.
But,
So,
well, no, actually, that's not true. The one on 30, 36, 34, 32, Howie Gugge's house is a porch on the front. Una and her
but that's not a
husband-
porch. That railing is only about 18 inches high or so.
Mhm, mhm.
And there's no door, there's just windows
Yeah.
there. So technically it's a folly. It's actually
Okay.
not really a
Right.
porch.
Well, the
say.
next door neighbor, it's a side, but actually not. It fronts the front of their yard as well.
Right, right.
So I could argue that that actually is a front porch. But I think in keeping with what's going on in the village, there are a number of front porches to homes that are actually used. And also historically, if I go back to this photograph, it's historically correct to do this. There are homes, numerous homes that have this. And in fact, on 18 Bellport Lane, again, it was a small porch. That being said, I have to say in the 1800s, people climbed out their windows and stood on those widows' walks, you know, as we saw them in Nantucket as well. And also, there is the porch on 42 Bellport Lane. Again, it has a low porch, but again, there is window access. It goes over the front. I don't know if you can see this. It's that beautiful turret house. There is over the front portico, it looks like the beginning of the porch. And it looks like it's either a window or a door. And you see, you can't tell from the street. But I do think we've sort of met that metric there, or that I don't think we're totally not in keeping with the village, because there are a number of porches usable and non-usable. The texture and subsection 3, the texture, materials, and color, and their relation to similar features of other properties in the neighborhood or the designated historic district meet. We're using all wood. We're doing white. We would do a black shutter if necessary. And visual compatibility with surrounding properties. And so including the facade, the roof shape, rhythm of spacing of properties, including setback. I think we've met all of those in 22.5 section 3, C subsection 3. And so I think, you know, I also too went back and said, all right, what are we doing here? But I think what we did with the design, Mark, you can jump in at any point, is I think we've stayed with what we think is a historic look. And as Roger said, it might be all a moot point, because it looks like the house has really been changed and is not so necessarily historic, in the sense that we're not removing something that was historically significant, because it's already been altered many times.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, Roger?
I was just going to say, Louise,
No,
what's your intended use for the porch up on
Porch?
top? Yeah.
You know, we'll be out maybe having a sunset. I'd like to see a sunrise rather out there. The mosquitoes are horrendous in the backyard right now. They're really bad. Maybe we'll be out, you know, if we get a nice little view. It's like the tee box view down there, down to the water. You know, it's not going to be a porch that we're sitting out there. I probably won't even put furniture, you know, or maybe I'll put a chair or something. There won't be any furniture. It's really something that we'd like to be able to go out, have a little coffee in the morning, We're
Yeah.
not going to be hanging out there. We have a very big backyard with a pool.
Yeah.
And I can even say my neighbors next door, they're out maybe once or twice. You know, people will come over, you'll have a little drink, you go in the house.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a porch where we're going to sit and lounge. That's just not the intended use.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the intended use for these homes either. Most of these homes, the intended use was a widow's walk. And as you all probably know, my son Michael is a big commercial fisherman at times and a fisherman, and I like to go out and watch him come home. So that is in keeping with, you know, believe me, he used to spend the night for 3 nights and in storms. I was, let's just say I aged, but I do believe that using it in that intended way is in keeping with the historic nature of a seaside fishing village. And as evidenced by, you know, some of our earlier homes, I believe that that's what their intended use was. Or sometimes many people didn't have air conditioning, and the only way to get a breeze was to step out on a 2nd-story porch and catch, if you can, the sea breeze.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think it's not going to be a porch, and it never will be a porch that would be used, you know, for like dinner.
Okay. Let me just update the commission on the house to the north, which was once Mark Rauch's house. In 2006, the Browns Lane was brought into the historic district. And in July, that was in July, in November, Mark decided to propose the idea of putting a French door up above his porch, screen and porch, and redo the top of that roof to make it a deck. He went before the commission apparently, and there was some discussion. Jeff Weber was the architect, and they were given permission to go ahead and put a door with access out to the deck. The railing was already there, and it became a different use up there. So that was approved in November of 2006 by the commission. I was informed of this by Mark today with a phone call to him.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know
Now,
that.
the awning up there was put on and installed by Walter Rowe, who bought the house from Mark.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I knew what Walter.
I have no
Yeah.
idea if that ever came before the commission or not, but there's a rather large awning now that's up on top of that
I
deck.
would think not, because it's pretty awful.
No, I've never.
Yeah.
Mary Lou, you never got anything.
No, no.
Yeah.
Can I just say something too? I mean, I can totally appreciate how you and your family are going to use the space, but I think we cannot at all guarantee how future people will use the space. It's one of my primary concerns. I can totally understand you and your family enjoying a drink at the sunset, you know, and then in 15, 20 years from now, I could also see, you know, a half rave being held there. It's one of these things. It's a change of use, and it alters the functionality of this. So, you know, it's the future. I'm a 50-year thinker. I'm not necessarily 5, 10. I want to make sure that this village maintains its integrity for my grandkids, and should there be any grandkids. So, you know, and I totally understand. I mean, it'd be a great view, the whole 9 yards. I totally understand it. But I also think, you know, to say that, well, it'll never be used for X is an impossible thing to kind of guarantee. So I think we have to consider that when we move forward in the thought process.
I do understand that, and I do, but just the size itself lends itself to not a whole lot of use. However, I would say the precedent was set by letting the Rouches have a porch. You know, I think that to single out my home now, to worry about what the intended use would be like, you know, you would have to say then all of the porches in the village would be subject to this. And to prevent me from doing it for something in the future, you know, I think the precedent has been set that the historic homes have had it. And I think that to deny me the use of it or to question that at this point would be sort of arbitrary, because we already have the situation with many porches already. And I know you could argue, well, we have many, but it doesn't seem or appear that there is a lot going on. And I too want my grandchildren to enjoy living in this historic home and living in this historic village because we love it,
Right.
as evidenced by my fourth
Sure.
park here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I totally understand, James, and I get your point.
Right.
And I think that the one way to handle that in the future would be possibly allocating or legislating, or however better way to say it, the use of these
Mhm.
porches in terms of gatherings and use, like maybe limiting, no more than a certain number of people per use or something. But I think to eliminate that or to deny that now for
Right.
something in the future would be sort of detrimental and sort of arbitrary in terms of my use.
Well,
I understand that, Roger. Isn't it on a case-by-case basis, however, because we're
Yeah.
throwing precedent around a lot. So in one hand, we're saying, we're going to set a precedent, or the precedent has been set that other people are making porches. And on the other hand, each case is a case-by-case basis, correct? So how do we address this precedent issue that kind of keeps coming up?
So let me interrupt. Can't we can stipulate, if we choose to, and it should be case by case, we can stipulate that furniture other than perhaps 2 benches. I mean,
Right.
quite frankly, I don't want to drive by your house and see Adirondack chairs on that,
No.
on that porch.
Right.
Well, but there's nothing to guarantee that the next owner won't think anything of it. So we can stipulate what may not go up there.
Well, the next owner might want the gable back.
Pardon me?
Oh, yeah. You're talking about
The next owner might put the gable back. Obviously,
yeah.
we have,
I think too, I mean, I understand that. I totally understand where you're coming from. But I also have to say that the house across the street from me, which is circa 1975, they put their chairs out there too, and we can't stop them. They're in a historic district, even though their home isn't historic. But I think it's rather arbitrary to stop and say, we don't want you to put this up because we're afraid you're going to use it improperly. I think, I don't know, legally, I don't know, I don't know if it's arbitrary and capricious or what, but I don't know. But I think my argument here is that we're changing a structure. We're asking to change a structure that's already been changed, and we're doing it in complete sort of, not compliance, but, it looks like any other porch. And, I mean, I think most people that buy a historic home, we can't legislate that people can't have good taste or bad taste. So I understand, James, and I totally get what you're saying. And, but I think for us to be denied this just because of the worry of people having parties up there.
Well, no, that's not the only worry. I mean, it's also, the removal of the gable, the pediment, is a concern for me because you lose a lot of the character of the house with that being removed, in my opinion.
Mhm.
In my opinion, just aesthetically, right? So if that goes, which then also exposes you to the front of the street an awful lot. Might be interesting in a design standpoint if that was to be retained in some way, right?
Mhm.
I don't think that would block your view to the sea.
Oh, no, I don't think it
Right,
would.
right. I mean, just I don't know. I guess the larger issue is, as Roger said before we even start talking about design, can they move forward at all? I guess is the real question.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think we've met all the criteria, and I think we've established that the home has been changed many times, and that it's not, it's not the same house that it was. It's been changed by numerous owners. So I don't know, Roger, does that meet the criteria?
I think that from my reading of the standards and from my reading of our guidelines and our law, we're supposed to alter houses, the historic aspects of houses, as little as possible. If it's not a historic element to the house, then there's a lot more flexibility
Right.
to replace it with something that is more historically correct than what's there. So I think the crux of the matter is whether or not that portico was built 2 years ago or 3 years ago or God knows when. This house is coming up on its 100th birthday. Huh?
Yes, yes.
It's not a contributing house, it's a historic house. So we're not dealing with that aspect of our guidelines. This is a real historic house. So I think we have to do the research that's necessary to prove that this thing is new and therefore not protected by the process that we're going through today. And
Well, I do have photographs.
Probably we can get there, but I don't think we're there yet.
I do have photographs.
I have to agree with Roger in that the reason why I asked him to look at those sections of the guidelines, the Secretary's guidelines, was that there might be some leeway in there for us. And I think Roger, in the fact that this portico has been changed over time. I don't think it's the original portico. I don't think it's is part of the architectural detail that was associated with the house early on.
I agree.
So because it has changed twice, at least that I know of, it could change a third time, maybe for the better.
You know, I know the house for 70 years because I lived across the street when I was 7, and it had a front portico, had a front porch like that. And it was basically the same footprint, but it may have changed. It looked more like the picture you showed earlier, my knowledge.
I can tell you the pillars are larger. If you look at the perspective, the pillars are at least one size larger, and I do.
That's definitely changed. But Roger, to your knowledge, can we stipulate the use of the top of that portico, of that porch? Can we stipulate what
I sat quietly during that part of the discussion, as I did about the discussion of the porch next door. I think the porch next door has no importance whatsoever to this discussion because it is a porch on the top of a side roof. So I'm really, Louise, you get me into mental trouble making comparisons that aren't really comparisons.
Okay.
I have to agree with that too. I don't think architecturally the two are equal.
Okay.
But I think, again, I think that if this porch is not as it was when the house was constructed or at some earlier significant point in time, then we can entertain a proposal to do something that is historically acceptable.
Right.
It's that simple. It's not simple, I guess, from the amount of time we've been spending on it. But that's the simple process.
Well, I think we still need to discuss changing the exterior of the house as little as possible is really important. It's important to me. I think if we can show that we're trying to accommodate the owner with a change, but we also have to look at our guidelines and say that maybe there's another way to preserve the facade of this house so it's more architecturally pleasing.
Well, we have something that we can present to you.
Okay.
Mark sent it back to me because we came up with a way to preserve the front gable. Mark, do you want to talk about that? So if you guys if you look at the drawing, there you go. It's something like that. So what we had done originally was we were trying to, utilize all the space, with the portico, if you notice, it comes out in a square and then another little square off of it. If we did, and I have, and Mark sent me, I can send you an email with it if you'd like, to show you the drawing, because we actually did that drawing. And it would save that front portico, the first, and then our deck would be in the back with the railing. If you want me to, let me see, scheme A. All right. I can forward this to you all right now if you'd like. Or Mary Lou, should I forward it to you and you might be able to put it on the screen?
I would have to go into another program, but send it to,
I
I'm
can
gonna put it in the chat so you,
Okay. All right, so where do we want me to send it to?
all right, can you see my in the chat? I just
Louis,
put up my email.
Louise, can I ask one question?
Yes,
Those windows on the second floor that are going to be
there it
part-
is. Here, he's got it right here. I'm sorry. Can you
You see
see
it?
in Mark's?
Yeah,
Is that portico, is the gable
that's
end
the existing
smaller?
gable of the house now.
It's the existing?
That's
Yes,
the existing gable that's there now. And we're just
It-
taking off the hip roof that's behind it.
right, and leaving
Just
everything else
making it
intact.
the rectangular porch.
It looks more shallow, the rendering.
I don't
Well-
think, I think it's today, I think
That's what's there now.
it's
Okay.
scale. Yeah,
Having real trouble hearing anybody because it all breaks up.
okay, I'm sorry.
Brian,
Yeah.
the question you wanted to ask, I believe, is the two windows that are over that portico are in the same room, aren't they, Louise?
They are, they are.
So in fact, if we chose, if we recommended or stipulated
Or
Uh,
suggest-
an invisible door, three windows, I think busies it up a lot.
I was suggesting that maybe the windows would go away and a French door would be introduced over the front door. I don't know if that would
I think,
that would simplify the fascia of it, the front of the building, the facade. I think by adding the glass door, it's just adding so much glass up there.
busyness, yeah. Well,
Can
then,
I make
then
another
that-
suggestion? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Roxanne.
A Dutch door would be an interesting option. The lower half of the Dutch door could have the same siding as the house, and the upper part of the Dutch door can actually mimic the window, and that might be an interesting way.
Mhm,
But you
mhm.
wouldn't see that. That's the whole thing.
No.
What's
Because-
that?
Not at all.
You might.
Well, with the
I disagree
gable-
with that, actually. I think you
actually,
might.
With the gable there, though, you may not, because the
If you're
gable,
walking from either the north or the south, you would see that. If you're standing directly in front of the gable, you might be right. But if you're across the street and you're walking south or you're walking north, there's a good chance that you would. So,
I'm not,
you know,
I'm
just a little thing.
No, yeah, I agree. I'm almost thinking that what might work better would be that the original thing to put the shutters on when the door is not open, because then it looks like you have, sort of these nice shutters there. And I do the house around the corner. I don't know. You probably don't. I don't know the number. It's on what is that? Tut Hill behind us. There's a beautiful old home. I forgot whose home it was. It's Stephen and Robert Perlow, but they have their entryway is a shuttered door.
Right.
And what would be nice about that, and Brian, I think this is what we discussed, was it still allows some light in, but it doesn't, and we could open that when we go out, and it's actually quite elegant.
Yeah,
And
right.
You don't
I
happen to have, you don't happen to have a rendering of that, do you? Just
No, but Mark, we could probably do something, right? And I think that so I think by adding the gable and making that look more like, something that would go along with the existing shutters could work. What do you think, James? Does that kind of answer? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. All this, obviously, that makes sense. The shutters, in a sense, it's basically what's called a blind window, and well, a little bit different. I take that back. The shutter could work. Again, this is all hinges on the fact of whether or not, it's a historic porch or not.
Right.
I guess. Frankly, I don't know if people back then would build the porch in its current configuration. So it leads me to say that perhaps it might have been added onto or
Yeah.
amended in some way. I'm not 100% sure. because I know that in that time period, people did things a lot more simply, but
I think a flat porch is more in keeping with the 20s. If, I lived in Atlanta for a while, and there were a lot of homes built in the 20s, and many of these colonials, with the formal entryway, they had
Right.
these flat roofs with these, these porches. So, so I do think the flat roof is more in keeping with the 1920s architecture, because we're not looking at a Greek revival home here. We're talking about, a very typical 1920s colonial. So I think, in my mind, I think we've established that this portico is probably not historic. And if we can do something to make it look more like with a flat roof, maybe with the gable, like you said, you keep that gable look on it.
Yeah, the gable is, I wonder, I'm just speaking. I didn't mean to cut you off. My apologies if I did cut you off.
I cut you off, I think. So.
That's okay. Would it be possible to actually change the proportion of the gate if we're dealing with something that's not necessarily historic?
Right.
If we changed, the gable looks slightly anemic in this relationship to the rest of the house. Mark, would you agree with that? It's a little bit shallow. It's a little bit small.
Yeah, well, that's what it was. That's what's there. Yes.
I understand. However, if we actually raised that peak up a little bit, maybe made that have a little bit more heft and a little bit more mass in keeping with the rest of the mass of the house. Two things. Number one, it actually would provide you with a little bit more privacy from the front of the street.
Right.
And it would actually kind of block the whole, I'm just afraid too of all that straight balustrades right across. If the pediment interrupts that and breaks that up, by actually raising the peak of that pediment, that might be an interesting solution. Again, hinging on if, historic porch or not. But anyway, these are just design ideas. But I don't know what your feeling is about that, but that could be interesting as well, because then that blocks that door in the middle a little bit more. It actually lessens the impact of that would-be door that would go in the middle.
Then maybe I wouldn't have to put the shutter on it. Maybe it would.
Perhaps.
Then I could get the full light in the room and and do that. So that might be. Do we have an idea here, like where you want me to go with this, or where we are with this? I'm trying to get a sense of timing and
sure, like
what you need from us, because I've already kind of made one change, and it is starting to get a little costly. So I would like some direction, or whether it's approved with changes, or how should I move forward? How should I?
I personally will feel better if we do less to change this than you're presenting.
Okay.
That's just my feeling. I just feel more comfortable with that. I don't want to really suggest to you what those architectural details are. Mark is the one that should be suggesting what the architectural details should be. I don't even know what style house this is. Is this a Georgian or an Adams? I have no idea. Mark, you probably have an idea. And then you would be able to look in a glossary of homes and see what has been done with those kinds of architectural structures.
Check to find out. They're all different. All those houses in Bellport down there, they're not like a Georgian. They're all eclectic as far as the historic is concerned.
No, I realize that, but I think what we're trying to do here is preserve the portico and add an architectural detail that will be satisfying to the streetscape. And I think by adding more glass to the second floor defeats that, my opinion.
Okay.
Does anyone else feel that the shutters should be added to those two windows to balance?
I can't envisage that. If I had a drawing that showed me what it looked like looking from the street over the pediment to the wall behind, I might think that was a good idea.
Mark, you have the capability of Photoshop?
No.
No?
If I could just step in, maybe I can organize our thoughts here and maybe come up with something, if that makes sense.
Okay.
here's what I'm thinking, since it's my home. And I'm trying to, and I wrote work with you all. I mean, I really want this to happen, but I want it to happen, you know, so we can all walk away from this and feel good about it. And so I think that if the compromise or the way to make this more palpable in a historic sense is to keep the gable in the front, put the railings behind it somehow. And I think that's a good compromise. I think that meets everyone's concerns with streetscape, with use going forward of the property, of the porch. And I think that it's probably more historically correct than what we have on there now. It keeps some of the older elements, even though they're probably not historic, but it keeps less change, which would then meet the guideline for doing less. Less is more. And so if that's the case, I'd like to move on with that design. And as you said, James, maybe play with the balance of that with the front of the home, and then give you an option. So what I want to do is, I don't want to go back and do 5 different things. I want to go back and create the gable that might be a little more aesthetically pleasing, and more in line with the overall shape of the house. And then give you an option of the door with a shutter, without a shutter, to sort of make the glass a little less obvious. So that the area that we're dealing with here is more of the door rather than the actual gable itself, the actual porch coming out all the way. So if we did a gable, you know, change the gable up a little bit to make James feel a little better and to have a better sort of look from the street. No, I mean, and I understand it. I think you might have a good point there to create privacy. We can still get our view, see the sunset, and still have some privacy. Keep the integrity of the gable. And then the real issue then would
just for the record, if you can see the sunset from that porch, you're a much better woman than I am.
I'm sorry, it's sunrise. You know, I may be short, but I'm a very tall personality.
That's good. That was good.
So sunrise. So I think what I'm trying to do is come up with two things to do. Change the gable so that we all kind of take a look at that. And then the real issue after that would be what to do with the window, the door.
Can I just, before you go further, Louise, can I just interject one other suggestion? But, you know, it's a design consideration.
Sure.
The 2 windows, as Michael was talking about, and James, the 2 windows, could those windows be replaced with 2 ceiling to floor doors, but only one of the doors opens, the other's a window, but they both look the same? That way you get more light in. You don't change the facade that much.
Right.
People walking down the street wouldn't even know that the glass is all the way to the floor. Is that something you might consider?
Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, no, without the door in the middle, we could do that.
And actually
on the inside, one doesn't open.
I mean, I would, as a designer, I look at so many options before I make a decision. And
Right.
I've even showed my clients several more options than they need to see, but.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I don't have any problem with that. I think maybe what we need to do is rethink the exit. And you know, that might be a better way to do it rather than tearing out and creating something in the center. Just use the existing space and the existing, you know, for lack of a better word, hole in the home, you know, the cutout. And a long window is fabulous. And I think they're beautiful. James,
So what
are you thinking?
What do you do with the existing shutter on those 2 windows?
We'd have to probably make them longer.
Okay.
Right, and then they would meet more in the middle and fill the space in the middle a little bit.
In the middle, they would be almost more like a real plantation shutter. I'm not the plantation.
Yeah,
I get it.
A usable shutter.
That's a good idea, I think.
Right, I think that's a great idea.
But it's just a suggestion.
Right. And and so that actually, Mark, what do you think? I think that's doable.
Yes, it could very well.
Yeah. So why don't we go back? We'll create the gable again, and we'll play with those 2 windows.
Yeah.
And maybe a door option just for, but you know, for me, it means that's great. I don't have to tear up more of the room. You know, I just don't want
Right.
to.
You already have the space there, right? So we can do
Yes.
that.
And just make those a door that looks like, you know, it's a very long window
Yep.
door. All right, I think we've got it.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that, or?
Is
do we
there,
need-
is there a way to sketch that that's more like a Photoshop sketch rather than something very, I don't know, architecture? The drawings that we look at are hard to visualize.
I know it's hard.
I don't have the capability.
Okay.
Well, maybe what we can do is find photographs of the pictures, maybe, or Brian, you're so adept at Photoshop, but maybe let me play with something.
I know. You know, I would suggest to do it, but I don't want ownership of this.
No, I know. No, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm stuck with the ownership. Which actually I'm thrilled with. I love living here. It's a fabulous home. And
Mark, I can't believe no one in your office uses Photoshop?
Nope.
They do it the old-fashioned way, Brian.
Right. Paper and pencil.
They do it the historic way.
Well, what about a little, how about a sketch rather than the very fine line, just like a.
You know what? Let's get the drawings and let me see what I can do. Maybe I know if
It's easy enough to create the drawings, but then give us a simplification that just shows that area that's going to be changed.
Mark, just
Okay.
be less is more, okay, Mark? Think less is more.
Gotcha.
Okay.
all right. So we'll just do maybe the front facade without a whole lot of anything, just showing
Yeah.
just what the overall look is going to be, and then fill in the blanks with what the materials. We all know the materials are going to be wood. It's going to be in keeping
Right.
with the home.
Yeah.
All right. Good suggestions.
Okay.
All right.
And we also thank you for caring for this house. I always have to say that. I know Brian says it a lot, but it's true. And it's in, you know, several extra steps that some people don't have to go through who are not living in a historic house.
Yeah,
But, you know, you obviously love this place as much as we do. And so
Yeah.
we appreciate that. But I always just want to say that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think that we have a responsibility as owners, and you know, and as you can tell by my history and my career, it's a lot of it has been in historic preservation and urban development, and you know, and in being conservative in development and not ruining our
Right.
world. So
Absolutely.
So we're here. We're on the same page with you. I think we've
Yep.
got it. We
Okay.
can work together and make it happen.
Thank you.
Great.
All right,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
thank you.
Mary Lou, I'd like to let Louise and Mark go. Could I just retain everybody else?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, now I have to learn how to, do I
See you,
just,
Mark.
what do I
Well,
do?
you
Do I
guys-
just,
You just
Morning,
end,
everybody.
Down in the
and
lower right, you have a
just
lead.
shut down Zoom.
I'll exit out. Okay, great.
Thanks, guys.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Mark, I'll call you. Okay, why am I not out? Hold on.
End meeting, maybe? Is
Yeah,
there
I'm
an
good.
end? Is
I'm
there an
gonna
end?
go out. Leave
There's
me.
an end if you go to the lower
There you go.
scroll. There we go.
They're gone.
Okay. Roger, thank you very much for doing that legwork on the, I think what you added was very important.
It's the crux of the matter, guys. I mean, no offense, but we really do have to have, you know, our ducks in an order as to what we want to have presented to us, right? And I sent an email around. Of course, nobody answered to what I suggested, but I'm new to this, but I feel like we are spitballing a lot of times. And I think it's more concise when we do have, like the read from that, you know, from the actual
Right.
historic. And Roger, thank you for bringing it back to the crux. Not that I don't care what happened in Nantucket and whether people have crappy
Yeah.
tastes
Or even,
some
or even
other
what
where.
happened- or even what happened next door.
I don't care. I mean, I think we have to keep it, exactly. We have to keep it very focused to
Yes.
say, this is what's on our plate and our agenda, and this is what we need, and then
Right.
work with the owner. I feel like at a certain point we're spitballing all over the place, and that gives them the out to say, well, is this capricious and litigious? It's like, come on,
Well,
it's just,
Yeah, the interesting
That's
thing
my
is
own.
that I'm sorry, as she said about, well, you know, setting a precedent and everything, which is our biggest concern about
Of
half the things that
course.
we do. You know, on one hand, she said, well, there's a precedent about there's porches already existing. And on the other hand, it's like, you can't set a precedent and deny me from doing this, because it's like, okay, you know, we
We
get
go in a
this,
circle and we don't care because
Right.
we have a charge, which we stand
Right.
behind what our mission is. And I like that she brought it back to, she felt she met the criteria. So that's like that's the discussion we should be having, right? Not the
The fact-
ephemeral things.
No,
Right.
and the fact of the matter is that probably the portico's
did-
probably underwent like 4 different renovations. I would imagine, and you know, in its time. If I took a look at it, I could probably tell you right now. You know, if I looked at the columns and looked at the beadboard and everything else, like might be the moment you open up the roof and you start looking at all the support beams in the roof, and you could probably gauge exactly, you know, by the dimensionality and size of the lumber and everything else like that. So,
And
you know, there's like
I feel her
exploratory.
frustration too. You know, she's trying to
Sure.
reach back to the owner to get some clarity, and they're afraid
Sure.
of being sued. So, you know, she can't
Right.
even get the leverage she needs to help us potentially help her. So I get her,
Right.
I feel her frustration.
Yeah,
but
no, it's
we shouldn't have to feel that we have to then make it good because
Right.
it was
No,
screwed
I
up
Yeah,
understand.
before.
I agree with that.
So.
I'm
I
sorry?
think, Lena, I did answer your email. I thought your email was great. I said so. But anyway, people having trouble here.
Yeah,
Wait
you're
a
breaking.
minute. No, I'm okay. You know, there were so many false arguments going on here tonight. I thought I would die. You know, every example of these balustrade porches, not one of them has a door.
No.
Not one of them. Not one.
Okay? So none of them apply. Absolutely none of them. And maybe we'll get to some place where we're going to be comfortable. I don't know. And if somebody comes by to take the gingerbread off the house across from the Catholic Church, we're not going to have a lot to stand on, by the way.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why I felt the first work session we didn't have enough. We didn't have enough, and I've done a lot of research. I know you all have done yours also. And it was hard for me to, Louise was telling me about all these houses in Nantucket that had this look, and I couldn't find the one that had exactly what she was talking about. But there weren't that many in Nantucket, and I didn't see it applying to Bellport so much. So,
No, that's why I think we have to stay tightly scoped to what our mission is and why we're considering it, what we need and what we don't need. And I do think we have to absolutely have photographs, current day photographs of every single, you know, home that's there, and then make the effort to go back through the Historical Society and the village, you know, archives, you know, to try to find renderings of these homes. So at least we have a body of knowledge that we can use going forward, and then can talk, you know, more about what was and what is.
yeah, you make that point, because this has been changed a couple of times, so it's not historic to the house. So
No.
this gives us a lot of latitude, I feel. I could be wrong, but I think it gives us her latitude.
Yeah, let us help you is the bottom line, you know, but you can't say that, you know,
No, but we want
you're
it
kind of
and
pissed off about it.
Get it. So, you know,
Essentially, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to invite her to tell us that this is a brand new portico. And for
Right.
some reason, she couldn't possibly.
She didn't go for it.
it is. It is.
And the architect was helping us here. What does he bring to the table?
Nothing.
Well,
He's
that's
just
a
here for
whole
the.
other story.
Yeah, I mean,
Gary's
want-
architects are very old school.
Oh my God.
They don't do a lot of the presentation materials that some of the other architectural firms that I deal with do.
Yeah.
You know, the photoshopping, the 3D-dimensional rendering. Gary's firm doesn't do that.
And those
Well,
are oftentimes the most important help.
Again, folks,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Roger. I don't mind doing the Photoshop for us, but I don't think I want to share it with anybody.
No, I don't.
I would not share it with anybody.
I'd be glad to do it if you want me to, but it would help. Help me. I'll do it for myself, but I'm
Yeah,
not.
no, it was really helpful what you sent around with the two comparisons, I have to say, Brian.
Okay. All right. I don't want to spend much more of your time, but I think this was really, really, really helpful.
You want to mention our meeting with LaChaux?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Tom. I'm glad that's why you're. That's why. Tom, why don't you?
192nd meeting with him.
I've had several with him. Tom has had one recently, and he asked me to come over and look at a change that he wants to do and some trim on the roof line. And I asked Tom to come over because I thought it really was important to have some backup there and a second set of eyes to look at it. So we went over, we talked with him. We suggested some things. He suggested some things. I think he's going to do what we suggested, but you never know. It was an interesting meeting. This project is taking so long because he's gotten the wrong contractors to help him on this thing. And it's just, I've asked him several times when he's going to be done with it, and he doesn't give me any commitment.
It's not so much the contractors.
No.
We had good contractors on that
It's-
I
job.
was so
It's him.
disappointed. It's
He
entirely,
fights-
it's
he
a brand
fights
new
with
house.
everybody he hires, and then they go away, and he doesn't pay them. Come on.
Self-inflicted.
It's not a Bell house anymore. It's a brand new house. Even the inside is all going to be brand new. All the floors are going to be tile. No, all the old wooden pine,
Tile.
yep, are gone. It's a brand new house. There's nothing historic about it anymore at all that I can see.
Holy cow, it was such a beautiful house when the Marinellis owned it.
Yeah.
It was historic.
Yeah.
And the first thing he said to me when I looked inside was, see that crooked door? You know, he was upset about the door being crooked. That was part of the charm of the whole house. But anyway, it's totally new inside. All going to be new.
So he's adding some trim along one of the gables, one of the, that would be, and it's not a hip roof, it's a gambrel roof.
Hmm.
He's adding some trim along part of it.
It's more
That he-
like molding, I think.
Yeah, molding, that's basically what it is. And we tried to convince him to add some fluting to it because some of the other molding had that. I think he heard us, so I'm just waiting to see what he's going to do now. Tom, do you have anything
This
else?
is on the gable, you said, Brian? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
The gable,
just-
you said?
just one of the gables that one of the new parts of the new gable there, what he's added on the back. He's got a gable that comes down that he's trying to
Okay.
replicate what's on the other gable on the main house.
Okay.
On the main gable, on the main house, where the asphalt shingle comes out a bit from the wall, there's a little bit of trim on the edge under that asphalt shingle. And we said we need to see that trim, that little piece of molding
Okay.
on the new part that he's adding. And he was
Got it.
trying to figure out how he's going to do it. But
So that's
you
what-
take a piece, and you go to my friend in Oakdale, and he'll make a knife and make a profile of it, and you put it on.
right.
That's what I said to him. I said, if you have a carpenter that has a router, it would be an easy solution. But anyhow, he has changed the house on the interior. We don't have any jurisdiction over that, so unfortunately, that's out of our hands. I've asked him when it's going to be completed. He has no idea. So Mary Lou is the only one that can really put pressure on him now, and I don't even know if that'll help. So that was LaChaux. As far as 52 goes, they haven't given us a landscape plan ever, and they've gone ahead and done all the landscaping, which I think looks pretty nice, and I've gotten nothing but compliments from people that I've talked to. They haven't put the shutters on the house, so Mary Lou, I was wondering if you could ask the contractor when the shutters are going to go up.
I will ask.
Okay, I know you're trying to stay on top of
That's
him.
why they're preserving the mahogany. Why isn't that mahogany painted?
It's supposed to be painted.
I will ask that too.
The rendering shows it painted. Now they put the copper screens on. It's going to be
I know.
hard to paint. Yeah.
Ouch. That's a hard task right now, my friends.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. There's no tape in that copper screen.
Wow.
And just a
That's a
quick question
challenge.
I have
Well-
for this commission is the landscaping, right? When we were talking about South Country Road, a lot of some of the decisions I felt were made on the fact that the landscaping wouldn't expose the side that was under consideration. And my question is, people can change the landscaping. So how do we, again, scope it to say if all the trees were gone, like from every possible angle, or what is our charge to preserve the streetscape with landscaping, since we don't control that? I just had that as a general question.
Well, we just finished the solar panels on Ryan's. We gave them an approval to put solar panels on the backyard. They have very high hedges going all the way down Brown's Lane. But someday those hedges might go away, and we've asked them to screen those panels. We haven't seen anything yet. I don't know if they get a CO, Mary Lou, based on whether all the details have been added that we requested. But we did ask for screening in that case, so that if those hedges ever go away, it still wouldn't be an eyesore.
My comment from the water looking up at Ryan's house is, wow. We have such a beautiful shoreline, but except for a couple of places, I won't mention who they are, but to see those panels is, oh my God.
It's a little bit more, I was on the water the other day, and my wife said, "What the hell is that?" She said, and I'm like, those are solar panels. And she was like, wow.
Can't we require Rosa rugosa or creeping junipers or something that around the edges of those things? I mean, it really is bad.
Well, once they call for the final inspection, I can ask you or Brian to go over, Tom, and, look at it before we issue a CO. And then, on the other hand, I have to check with the attorneys about plantings, because
That's my question. Yep.
plantings, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, we can say we want plantings, but how specific we can be as to what they are and what the height is, it's a bit of it's a gray area, because we had a village attorney before Dave met Anthony Tohill.
Yeah.
And Anthony, who I have the utmost respect for, was very clear about trying to regulate living things, and says and told us it's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that
I thought that when we had this discussion about the solar panels, that they agreed that they were going to landscape around the panel so that.
I thought you're right.
they did.
Roger.
They did.
You're right.
They did. They did.
Okay.
I remember that discussion. I mean, this is a new installation, so is it possible that this just didn't happen yet?
Yeah, let's just give them time. Let's not say anything.
Yeah. Just curious.
Well, I think we should remind them of the discussions we had.
We should follow up on it, though.
Okay.
Because it is important.
That, or we can force everybody to go by in kayaks, because when I go by in kayaks, it doesn't look so bad.
Oh, there you go.
Try standing up in the kayak.
Going back to Lachaud, Tom asked Mr. Lachaud if he was doing new landscaping, and he said, and then Tom said, if you do, we need to have a plan. And he got very, very upset, and he said, no, I'm not doing anything different. So he says he's going to replace everything in kind. So I have to dig out my photographs of that house to make sure that we hold him to that.
No, he was seeing dollar signs. He just didn't want to be bothered. He'd spent enough. He's had it.
Yeah, he's done.
Yeah.
If you want entertainment, you could ask Joan Bytel what he thinks about this whole project. If you have a 4-letter word filter, you'll be in better shape. Why can't he put the chain link fence behind the hedge rather than in front of it? I mean, for God's sake.
I don't know.
Now all of the trees have died.
Mary Lou, you would know, is that a regulation that he has to have that in the front?
The insurance regulations may specify that's where it has to be, because now when you do work like he's doing, the insurance companies are requiring fences. So the insurance company may be dictating where
Yeah.
he puts the fence.
Well, but he doesn't have a fence. He has a hedge and a picket fence and the cyclone fence. So I don't know how that fits in any
The insurance,
it's mandated by.
insurance companies are now mandating some kind of protective fencing when you do work, when you do major work, especially you lift a house, you know. So it may be that the insurance company mandated where he put the fence.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'd have to find out.
Sometimes you have to file a separate plan that shows where your fencing and your environmental protection is going to go before you can get approval in certain places. From your insurance company, they want to see it. Construction insurance is a totally different animal, and they have rules that would blow your mind.
Yeah, we've started seeing that in the past couple of years.
Yep.
Some of the major construction jobs, you know, the ones down on South House had to have huge construction fences for the insurance company. That wasn't something I told them they had to do.
But they're not meant to be permanent. They're meant to prevent liability during construction.
Right.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
So once he's at the point where he can take that fence down, because that's not a permanent fence, that's just to keep people out right now.
Right.
Because we do have a lot of people, and I have gotten phone calls from contractors. We're seeing people on the properties and they're not supposed to be there because of the liability when a house is under construction. People are not supposed to go on the construction site except for the homeowner and the contractors and the workers.
Mary Lou,
Peter and I.
at what point can the village fine him? He's been going on 3 years. Is there a length of time where the village says this is enough is enough?
Well, he only started last year.
What?
He only started this project last year.
Okay.
This project didn't start 3 years ago. It started last year. His
Seems like
permit, I have to look and see, it's probably expired. So that's something I can probably kind of light a fire under him for, because he's going to have to renew the permit. And, you know, see what we can do to get him to move.
One last point before we get off. This situation with 36, where you didn't know there was a change in the portico, code didn't know there was a change. I didn't know. I walk down that street all the time. How do we police this? How do we make sure that people don't make changes without going through the proper channels? I mean, I thought it was embarrassing to me to find out that all these changes were done and we didn't even know about it.
They just did them.
But I mean, somebody had to see somebody on the roof tearing the shingles off.
It's been left up to us to police all this stuff over the years.
So what do we do?
So
there?
I ask that if code sees something going on, that they tell me.
Yeah.
Some of the code officers will do it, and some of the code officers.
But Mary Lou, the code officers don't know what's being required and what's going on.
No, but they can certainly report there's construction going on. You know.
Have they ever done that, Mary Lou?
Yes,
Okay.
they have.
Well, if you could just remind Donnie that we were in a situation that we'd like not to be in again, that would be great.
You got it.
Thanks. I don't have anything else to add. Do you guys have anything else you want to discuss?
I'm
No,
okay.
Just a big thanks for all the legwork and research. I think it makes it
Yeah. Thanks,
more,
guys.
more important.
Pam said to me tonight, she said, "What are you doing? Why are you agonizing over this?" I said, "Pam, I'm not agonizing. I just want to make sure that we are approaching this correctly."
No, and I think that's the precedent. You have to have that. Then you feel good about the decisions that are made because you can stand behind them for very valid reasons other than.
That's why I got this book.
Yeah.
Good.
This is a great book. By the way, this book. Yes, there you go. This book If it really is the guidelines in which they go through, man alive,
Yeah,
she would not want to suggest me reading this
yeah,
because it's way more stringent than you could possibly imagine. So, but anyway, it's okay.
I think we raised a lot of good
All right.
questions. I think everybody really contributed to this meeting, and I appreciate all your legwork also. So let's just wait to see now what the architect brings back, and then we can decide whether to go forward. Mary Lou, what do you think we need to do now? Do we need to send this to, do we wait to send it to zoning still?
We wait, because if you don't, I don't want to send it to zoning until this board, everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
Because you may look at it and decide, no, I still, and the research that gets done might find that, some of that portico structure is original to the house. And someone would have to take a look at it to see how much of it is original and how much of it is rebuilt.
Right. Okay. All right. I just wonder how we are as members, as a group, going to review this before we have to have a public meeting. I don't think we need to have another work session. At least I don't want to.
No.
We'll see what they come back with, and then.
But if they come back, then we all have to look at it individually, and we can't really talk about it, right?
Well, if you're gonna do that Photoshop, Brian, I think that'd be great for us to look at.
I can do that. I'll do that. I'll even do the gable.
Yeah, but don't